Okay, great, perfect. So, welcome everyone. I'm curious how many of you were on the previous presentation? Okay, plenty. So I'll still go through some basics to show you my point of view, my perspective, and to show how SLOs can be used in daily life. My name is Krzysztof Skitek. I am an application architect at Noble9. We are providing a SLO-centric platform at Noble9. And today in the agenda, I will go through in some bits what an SLO is, and then I will dive into different perspectives of using the SLOs. And in the end, I want to leave you with some pointers. How can you start? What are the first good steps you can make when setting up SLOs, or what you should think about. So an SLO, the main idea is already in the name and was really nicely explained in the Matt's talk previously. But you have a service that you provide to your users. You agree on a certain level of the service that you want to provide to your users. And this is this objective, this goal that you agreed within your company, with your team, that you want to meet. And the very important thing is that you are looking at the user experience. It's something that actually defines your service as seen by your users. So anything like when you are providing a web application, it might be the first contentful load. When you are providing some API, it might be the latency of your endpoints, or the error rate, or I don't know, some contract or transaction processing time in a back office system, or a amount of time your train or bus is late, something very not technical, taken from a real life as a real measure of your user experience. But before we go further, I want to take a step back into something that you're all probably pretty used to, a screenshot from Grafana with a CPU metric. It can be CPU, memory, something that you're all seeing probably every day. We are also pretty used to setting up some thresholds on those metrics. For example, like in this case, 90% of CPU usage means our service is bad. So with threshold, there's one problem that you are either above the threshold or below the threshold. So this means your service is okay, or it is on fire. There's nothing in between. Moreover, how to answer the question, is it okay to be above the threshold for 5 seconds, minutes, days, hours? How do you answer those questions? Well, for days, probably most of you will say that this is not okay. When it comes to ours, maybe someone in this room has users in one time zone. They are not active during the night, so maybe those few hours might be also okay. Minutes, seconds, yeah, it depends. And we are starting using some guesses, some hunches, this leads to not really productive discussions, because everyone has different opinion or different idea what the right level can be. So SLOs bring you a few ways to deal with those hunches, and one improvement you can make with SLOs is to use the error budget within the SLO. The error budget is basically agreeing that we are not able to be 100% reliable. This is not physically possible. This is too costly. So you know probably this table with SLAs. You agree that there's certain amount of errors that your users can tolerate. For example, you can be in a 1 week observation period. You can be down, or you can provide subpar service level for 10 minutes, for example. So another way to visualize that would be like on this screenshot. It is a screenshot from Noble-Line application, actually. You have here an upgrader service. I will talk about this service in a few slides. I have here a target set to 93%, and I am observing this SLO within 7 days window. This translates into 12 hours of error budget. This means that this upgrader service can be down for 12 hours. And is it okay? Is it too high? Hopefully I will show you that in case of this service, it is just the right amount. We'll come back to the upgrader in a few slides. Coming back to those simple metrics that we are used to, the CPU, for example. Does it actually matter that the CPU is over 90%? How do you know that? Well, from our very technical point of view, well, it looks bad. Something is maybe on fire. But in order to actually know how bad or not it is, you would have to go through this way. Let's say we were paged because the CPU threshold was exceeded. We are starting the investigation. We are digging into node metrics, into service metrics. We have our traces, logs. So we have a lot of information. And how do we know from all of this information that the situation is actually bad? Moreover, when it comes to the CPU usage, many times it is easy to get into noisy neighbor problems, which means you would have to actually check if service B and C is also impacted. So you will be looking for some metrics of healthiness of those three services. you will be again guessing, looking in a hurry, maybe during the night. So if you reverse this a little bit, if you find those few metrics that your users are actually looking into, they do care about them, your situation is a little bit better because you are no longer paged because your CPU was exceeded. You are paged because your users experienced subpar service level. You are still relying on those metrics. You are still using the CPU metric, in this case, as a first entry point to debugging what happened. But you immediately know that someone actually was impacted by it. And you also can very quickly check status of your other services SLOs. And you don't have to go through, again, through this way of debugging what if something happened and what happened in other services. And this brings me to the perspective of an on-call. So I am on call, and you might say that, or some say that it is, of course, a very noble thing to wake up in the middle of the night and rescue your system from fire, but nobody likes to be woken up, right? So SLOs can help you with many situations. Very typical situation that happened to me many times. Service that is flapping, that is going from bad to good, from good to bad. Nobody has time to investigate it, or even worse, it pages me, but when I actually wake up, sit at my laptop, I see that the monitor already resolved itself because it was just one spike. So what can you do with something like that? Well, you can silence it. It is a solution, not a great solution. You can, of course, raise the threshold of alerting. But again, you are guessing for how long, by how much you should raise it. And you don't really know if this will be enough or not. So again, the guessing game begins. Also, this might be a long-standing problem. It only manifests in just those few spikes. But if you raise the threshold too high, you might lose some critical information or alert just before your system went down. So the other case or similar case is when many times you have services that or alerts that are just fine if it is just one-timer, but if it keeps happening, we know that we will be in trouble. And this leads to being this sad man staring at production dashboards proactively, and being a little bit paranoid and probably tired as well. So coming back to the upgrader service example, with SLOs, I already said that you have this target, you have your observation window. This translates into your error budget. But when you are getting into some errors, you're spending this budget or burning, you can calculate your burn rate. And this is very simple but really nice tool in the alerting toolbox, because it allows you to take different decisions based on the current situation. What you can do, you can set your burn rate-based alerts or error budget-based alerts and say, hey, if my whole budget will be burned in 5 days, I don't want to be paged, because this is something that is slowly but constantly burning. This means that we have some degradation, but this is just fine to react in regular working hours. So in this case, I would set up the alerting rule to sending notification on a Slack channel to the team that is responsible for the upgrader service, or create a ticket immediately. But when the error budget will be burned within the next 4 hours, I know the situation is bad, I'm burning pretty fast, people are dying generally, so I have to react, I have to be paged and fix the problem. So you see, you get new decision-making tool and different ability to react differently based on how your system actually behaves right now. And you no longer have the situation when your system is completely or is green, is below the threshold, or is on fire, is above the threshold. You can adjust your rules. I mentioned the software team, development team, that you can send a Slack message, for example, that something is not right. So this leads me to the software development part of the SLOs. Does anyone know this screenshot? No. This is a screenshot from scripts.com. It is an RTS for programmers. So it is like regular RTS where you have to mine energy and expand your colony. But in this case, you have to code everything. So I have my miners code that directs my miners from the from my colony to the energy source and back. I have to code everything. I have few services. I have those miners. I have a service that spawns new workers. I have Defender service that defends from attacks from others, and some attacking services. I have also the already mentioned upgrader service. And I pointed before that I have pretty high or low. I have pretty low target. I have almost 12 hours of error budget. And scripts is something that I am playing off hours, off working hours. So I'm honest with myself that I will not be able to react when I am working. I also don't want to be paged during the night. So I am, in this case, I'm honest with myself, and I agree that this is the best I can do. I'm not able, even if everything is on fire, I'm not able to provide better service in this case. I'm not able to react faster. And this is, I think, really important part of the SLOs, that it only makes sense when the goals you are setting are achievable. When only in this case you can use it for internal discussions. Only then you can use it to guide your decisions. With scripts, I have, so the whole system, my whole code is fairly simple, so I am lucky enough to use just one, like a key metric of my scripts colony success. In this case, it is energy utilization. So the way it works in my setup, I have for every single service, for the Defender, for the Upgrader, I have own SLOs, but I also have like a main SLO for my whole colony to observe if I am reaching my main goal, which is to mine enough energy to expand my colony, but also to implement this part of code efficiently enough, the part of code that uses this energy efficiently enough, so I don't have too much energy lying around and doing basically nothing. And I think this is also something that we experience in our teams, in our daily professional life, that we want to spend some time on some great optimizations. It is, for us, we see our code as bad. We see many things we should improve. But I think this example shows really well that you don't have to be perfect all the times. And with scripts, I have really nice example into that. In the beginning of my scripts code, I decided not to implement the Defender code at all. So I was just monitoring how many attackers are in my colony and for how long they are staying there. But I was mainly observing the energy utilization. And I saw that, or I assumed that I will be able to recover quickly from attacks. I had some energy buffer. So it didn't really matter for my key metric that I lost something, because there were so many, there were many different places where I could have spent time implementing like the upgrader code or prepare for next levels of my colony. So implementing new features. So I deliberately decided to not implement this part of code at all. I was observing how much budget I'm burning, and only when I saw the correlation between attacks and big drop downs in the energy utilization, only then I dug into it. I don't think we have time. Oh, maybe let's quickly go through this. This is another example of some regression I had in one of my services. And maybe you can see in this chart that in the end, I'm recovering some small amount of budget. So I was comparing SLO of this service that burned some budget after new release of my code with the with the energy utilization. And I now had few different questions I could ask myself. If this was just an isolated event and maybe I don't have to care about it that much, because in the end my colony goal was not degraded that much. I knew there is a chance there was something that I can optimize in my code, and that my scripts are dying at the same time, and the queue service is not handling it well. So I had some idea where I can make some improvements, but I didn't have to jump into implementing this part. I was able to just look into the energy utilization as well. And one other question that we should ask ourselves when this happens, if our assumptions, if our expectations are at the right level, maybe we actually do have too high expectations for our service. Maybe the users don't really need that much, or maybe it is too costly for us. So when talking about making those decisions, this leads to the architect role. As an architect, you have to take goals of your product, of your business, and talk with your team, how can we meet those goals? And SLOs are a way to actually show to every participant how far from this goal we are, because you have the data. You stopped guessing. You have all the data. And also the process of designing SLOs should be collaborative with your team, with your business. This isn't a goal you set up in your basement and you are the only person aware that you meet your goals. When your business always has some next goals for you to meet, and with the SLOs you have all the information in those charts, how all the feature work you're doing, your teams are doing, is impacting those metrics. And also you can see on those charts every place when every time you are actually leaving some debt behind you, you also will see in those metrics that something is not right. And I want to leave you with few pointers how to start with setting up SLOs. So the first thing, you have to find those key metrics. In the scripts example, it was fairly simple because the system is not that complex. In case of your product, it most likely will be harder to set. I think what you should do in the beginning is find just a few examples of your user satisfaction metrics. You will be tempted to measure, or you will have ideas probably for many different metrics, but when you try to distill what is the most important, what are, I don't know, the three most important characteristics of your systems that your user are looking into. This would be the nice starting point for setting up an SLO. Then when coming to actually finding the right metrics in your telemetry systems, you should concentrate on your user experience. Let me give you an example. When you have a REST endpoints and a database under the hood, you cannot just measure the, I don't know, database latency or the query latency. You should measure the whole user path as seen by the user. So the best way to measure it would be on the client side, what was actually the perceived by the user experience. Because we many times assume that we know our users, that we understand our users, but if you start looking into real data of how your users are actually using your application, many times you are surprised that, hey, there's no one actually using those endpoints, or we have few users from some different geolocation and they are hit pretty badly by the latency due to being in different locations. So you might be still measuring the latency of your, or you might be measuring the response times in your backend services, but you wouldn't know that there is someone who is experiencing something worse. So try to fit in your user's shoes, and you should start with something that is achievable. You should be honest with yourself and with your product team, with your business. This is also a good point to maybe do some pushback on your product, that when they have some unreasonable demands, you can present them the data. Hey, we are that much below the threshold. We are not able to reach this goal. If you want us to, we will, but we have to set up, I don't know, HA setup, or we have to invest a few months to implement something. So this is also a good point to start discussions with your teams. I think one important thing to remember is that you will not get it right the first time. So this is an iterative process. And in my opinion, your budget should be burned. So always green budget means that you're maybe missing an opportunity to run some experiments with your development teams. Or it might mean that you're overpaying for your infrastructure. So you should play with your budget. You should burn it a little bit. Also to know boundaries of your services, to know what actually impacts your users or not. If you want to read a little bit more about process of setting up and good questions you can ask yourself, Slow DLC, I think, is a good source. And last thing, when setting up those goals, remember to be specific about your goals, about your metrics. Something that is vague will not bring any value because it will bring more questions. What are we actually measuring? You should always communicate those goals with your stakeholders to come back to them, and you should agree on those goals with your stakeholders, and only then you can come back to them and discuss what do we do next. And some good metrics that you might already have is first the user satisfaction. This is pretty vague, but it will depend on your system. You probably have some ideas when your user, or what makes your user happy or not. But the error rates, the availability, response times, these are good candidates for making an SLO. And that would be it. I don't think we have time for questions, but I will be here the whole day, so I'll be happy to talk with anyone about SLOs.